We are live. We are live. Yes, we are live, and it is now allowing me to invite folks to watch. Yes, this is going to be posted up on Facebook for those of you who would like to watch later. It is also going to be on YouTube, the tube of you. Yes, time to send out some invites, invitations. That way we can get people watching, and then we will get to the reading. Yes, there is one eye up there, which means someone is watching. Let us see who has joined in the participation. Regardless, now that there are several eyes, I can go ahead and do the introduction. Hello, I am Brett Picorni, and I'm here tonight for another edition of Story Time Tonight. We drink vodka and read Russian fairy tales. Yes, the standard. Oh, yes. Well, anyway, if you like to drink vodka, you may join me as long as you have some of your own. It is good, no? It's like water almost, but fun, the fun kind of water. Anyway, tonight, like I said, we drink vodka. We read Russian fairy tales. Something you should know about Russian fairy tales. They're not like your ordinary fairy tales, no. And many of these predate Soviet Russia even, so you know they're no joke. Nothing to shake your finger at. No, they are serious stuff. They're not like ordinary fairy tales. In fact, in these fairy tales, they're really generally not a moral to the story. In fact, most people, well, everyone involved usually lose. So there is that. You may not like the Russian fairy tales. In fact, so far, not many of them have I liked all that much, but I know there are some that I do, so we will continue on in this program. We will journey forth, as it were. No, I will probably not keep on in this accent the whole time. No, it devolves into other things. So I will go back into my regular accent when we move into the actual reading of the stories. I'll wait till we get a few more eyeballs watching, and then we can move into it. In the meantime, I send invites. If you have questions, feel free to post them. If you would like to share this, please do so. I'm sure many people would like to watch and hear me make fool of myself, no? Well, maybe not. We will see. Regardless, we are going to have fun tonight. We're going to read Russian fairy tales, drink vodka, and I will read to you an original story later as well. So at the end of our Russian fairy tales, I will read original story. Then we will get back to our traditional reading Monday through Friday, where we will be reading Harry Potter. There's the devolution I was telling you about. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. The Sorcerer's Stone. Yeah. Already the accent is losing itself, so I will move to my more traditional story time reading voice. Yes, that fits me quite well, I think, doesn't it? I still have vodka here, though, don't worry. Yes, I'm still broadcasting. Don't move off the damn page. So, back to my normal voice here, and we will be enjoying ourselves some delightful stories. That was a lie. None of these stories are really delightful, to be honest. However, we will be enjoying some stories. Now, a warning if you haven't heard the Russian fairy tales yet, if you weren't here last night, they're interesting. There's not usually a point to a lot of these stories, not usually a moral either. They're just stories. And some of them are rather redundant for the sake of storytelling scheme, lengthening them. And not all of them are all that good. But I do remember some being rather redeemable in the not in the fact that they had a moral. I don't remember any morals to any of the Russian fairy tales. But I do remember that most of them that I enjoyed were fun. They were fun and ridiculous. So, without any further ado, I think we should get into this. I will stop jabbering on so that we may move on to the reading. Now, here is the book one more time so that you may see the illustration on the front. Russian fairy tales. Ooh, it's a little bit glary there. But there's the image there. It doesn't look very happy, does it? But then again, this is from Russia. So I guess that makes sense. Sorry, Russia, for putting you down so much. Anyway, let us begin. I will continue where we left off last night, but first another sip of my beverage. Here we are. Cheers. Good stuff. Now, moving on. The story we begin with tonight is called The Enchanted Ring. Yes, The Enchanted Ring. That sounds like quite an interesting story, doesn't it? Let's hope it's much more enchanting than the story we left off with last night, which was riddles. That was one of the lesser disliked ones of last night. But regardless, let's see how The Enchanted Ring goes. Are you ready? Because I am. In a certain land, in a certain big village, there lived a peasant who was neither rich nor poor. He had a son, and bequeathed to him 300 rubles, saying, "Here, my son, I give you my blessing. With 300 rubles, when you come of age." The son grew up, came to the age of reason, and said to his mother, "I remember that my deceased father gave me his blessing with 300 rubles. Now give me at least 100 of them." She gave him 100 rubles, and he took to the road. He met a peasant leading a flap-eared dog. He said, "Peasant, sell me that dog." The peasant said, "Give me 100 rubles for it." He gave his 100 rubles for the dog, led him home, and gave him food and drink. Then he asked his mother for another 100 rubles. The mother gave him another 100 rubles, and he took to the road. Again he met a peasant, and this time a fellow leading a cat with a golden tail. He said, "Peasant, sell me that cat." The peasant answered, "Buy him." "And what do you want for him?" The peasant answered, "If you want him, give me 100 rubles." And he gave him the cat for 100 rubles. The young man took the cat, led her home, and gave her drink and food. Then he again asked his mother for 100 rubles. The mother said to him, "My beloved child, what do you spend the money on? Your purchases are useless." Mother, don't worry about the money. Somehow it will come back to us." She gave him the third 100, and he again took to the road. So far, so good. Then, in a certain land, in a certain city, a princess died, and on her hand was a golden ring. Our youth wanted badly to get this ring from her finger. He bribed the sentries to let him come near the princess bier. He came very close to her, took the ring off her finger, and went home to his mother. No one had stopped him. Ooh, my. Took a dead princess's ring. I wonder where this is going. He lived at home for some time, a long time or a short time. Then he went out on the porch and moved the ring from one hand to the other. 300 strong men and 170 knights jumped out of the ring and said, "What work do you order us to do?" "This is what I order you to do. First, knock down my old hut, and on the same spot build a stone house, and let my mother know nothing about it." They did this task in one night. His mother arose and asked, surprised, "Whose house is this?" Her son answered, "Mother, be not surprised, but pray to God. This house is ours." And so they lived in it for some time, a long time or a short time, until the youth came to manhood and wanted to take him a wife. So, just a recap there. He well, he moved the ring from one hand to another, and a bunch of knights popped out of the ring. That's interesting. Okay, so in a certain kingdom, in a certain land, a certain king had a daughter, and our young man wanted to marry her. He said to his mother, "In such and such a kingdom, such and such a king has a beautiful daughter. Woo her for me, mother." The mother answered him, "My beloved child, how can such as we get a princess?" He answered her, "Mother, my good parent, pray to the Saviour, drink kvass, and go to bed. The morning is wiser than the evening." The good youth himself went on the porch, moved the ring from one hand to the other, and 300 strong men and 170 knights jumped out and asked him, "What do you order us to do?" "Find for me things so precious that the king does not have them, and bring them to me on golden trays. I must give presents to the king and his daughter." They straightway brought him such things, and he sent his mother to the king to make the march for him. Interesting. So he has a ring where you can transfer it from one hand to another, then knights and stuff will pop out of it and do anything you need them to do. That sounds quite useful. So, moving onward. The mother came to the king, and he said with surprise, "Old woman, Where did you get these things? Ha! Yes, I'll tell you where he got these things. The princess came out, looked at them, and said, Well, old woman, tell your son to build in one night in the king's sacred meadow a new palace, more splendid than my father's own, and to hang a crystal bridge from... I may have skipped... No, I did not skip anything. And to hang a crystal bridge from one palace to the other, and to cover the crystal bridge with all kinds of embroidered rugs. If he does all this, I will marry him. If he does not, there will be no pardon for him, and he must lay his rash head on the block. That's wow. That's awfully intense. So, okay, let's see what happens. The old woman went home in tears and said to her son, My beloved child, I told you not to seek the princess in marriage. Now she has ordered me to tell you that if you want to marry her, you must build a new palace in the sacred meadow in one night, and it must be more splendid than her father's own, and a crystal bridge must lead from one palace to the other. And this crystal bridge must be covered with all kinds of embroidered rugs. And if you fail to do these things, you must lay your rash head on the block. Now, what are you going to do, my child? He answered, Mother, my parrot, have no misgivings. Pray to the Saviour, drink kvass, and go to bed. The morning is wiser than the evening. Our youth himself went on the porch, moved the ring from one hand to the other, and 300 strong men and 170 knights jumped out and asked, What do you order us to do? He said to them, My dear friends, try in one night to build for me a new palace in the king's sacred meadow, and let it be more splendid than the king's own, and let a crystal bridge hang between one palace and the other, and let this bridge be covered with all kinds of embroidered rugs. In one night the strong men and knights built everything they were commanded to build. In the morning the king rose, looked at his secret meadow through a spyglass, marveled at the new palace, more splendid than his own, and sent a messenger to tell the good youth that he could come to woo the princess, and that the princess had agreed to marry him. So the match was made, the wedding was celebrated, and a great feast was held. I bet it was a great feast. You'd better make a darn great feast for anyone who can in one night build an entire castle more splendid than your own, plus a crystal bridge hanging from one end to the end connecting the two castles. I know he didn't do it on his own, but even so, the fact that it happened, oh my goodness, one night. It's impressive. But anyway, sorry, I was marveling at something. Anyway, let's move on. Maybe it'll tell us a little bit about the feast. First, another sip. They lived together for some time, a long time or a short time, and then the princess asked her husband, Please, tell me how you accomplished such a thing in one night. From now on, we shall think together. She flattered him, exhorted him, and served him all kinds of liquors. She made him dead drunk, and he told her what she wanted to know. I did it with this ring. She took the ring from the drunken man, moved it from one hand to the other, and 300 strong men and 170 knights jumped out and asked her, What do you command us to do? This I command. Take that drunkard and throw him on my father's meadow, and carry me with the whole palace beyond thrice 9 and 3 lands, beyond the 10th kingdom, to such and such a king. In one night they carried her to where she bade them. In the morning the king rose, looked through the spyglass at his sacred meadow, and there was no palace and no crystal bridge, only one man was lying there. The king sent forth messengers, saying, Find out what man is lying there. The messengers went there, came back, and said to the king, Your son-in-law is lying there alone. Go and bring him to me. They brought him, and the king asked, What did you do with the princess in the palace? He answered, Your Majesty, I do not know. It is as though I lost her while I was asleep. The king said, I give you 3 months' time to discover where the princess is, else I will put you to death. And he put the good youth into a strong dungeon. Now I have a question here. How is he supposed to find her in 3 months if he's put in a dungeon? That seems invalid to me. How are you supposed to find anyone from a dungeon? Regardless, I'm sure he can do it. Oh, this is a Russian fairy tale after all. It has to have... Okay, maybe it doesn't have to have a good ending. All right, let's see what the youth does. Then the cat said to the flap-eared dog, Oh, the cat and the dog come back in handy. They make an appearance in the story once again. Said to the flap-eared dog, Imagine it, our master in prison. The princess deceived him, took the ring off his finger, and went away beyond thrice 9 lands, beyond the 10th kingdom. We must get the ring. Let us run together. They ran. Whenever they had to cross a lake or a river, the cat sat on the neck of the flat-eared dog, and the dog carried her to the other side. And sometime, a long time or a short time, they ran beyond thrice 9 lands, beyond the 10th kingdom. The cat said to the dog, "If someone from the king's kitchen sends for wood, do you run at once? I will go to the pantry, to the housekeeper, whatever she wants, I will serve." All right, but first, before we move on to that, I need to show you a picture because there is an image in the book here from what we just read in the pages before. Here it is. Yes, it looks like the man in the dungeon. All right, so there he is. And moving on to where we left off. There we are. So, the cat and the dog off on an adventure together. Excuse me. They began to live in the king's palace. The housekeeper said to the king, "If in my pantry there is a cat with a golden tail, whatever I want, she serves." The cook said, "And I have a flap-eared dog. When I send the boy for wood, he rushes out and gets it." The king answered, "Bring the flap-eared dog to my bedroom." And the princess said, "And to me, bring the cat with the golden tail." The dog and cat were brought and stayed in the palace night and day. But whenever she went to sleep, the princess put the ring in her mouth. One night a mouse ran across the princess's chambers, and the cat snatched him by the neck. The mouse said, "Do not harm me, cat. I know what you have come for. You have come for the ring, and I will get it for you." The cat let him go. He jumped on the bed, straight on the princess, stuck his tail into her mouth, and wiggled it. Oh my! The princess spat and spat out the ring. The cat snatched it and cried to the flap-eared dog, "Hurry!" Now, I don't blame her. If a mouse stuck its tail into my mouth in the middle of the night, I would probably wake up screaming and spitting as well. I remember one time in the middle of the night, it was the most horrible thing. I reached down. I have a container of water by the bed. I reached down and I pulled it up and I took a swig, and in my mouth came an awfully a piece of ice that felt like it was wriggling, and it was not a piece of ice, and I ended up spitting out that mouthful of water onto the ground with what appeared to be some form of roach or something in half. I brushed my teeth about 5 times after that. It was awful, truly awful. Gosh, I wish I hadn't been reminded of that. Anyway, let us move forward with the story. They jumped out of the window and ran. They ran over land and swam across lakes and rivers. They arrived in their kingdom and went straight to the prison. The cat climbed in. Her master saw her and began to stroke her. The cat sang songs and put the ring on his hand. The master was overjoyed and moved it from one hand to the other. And 300 strong men and 170 knights jumped out and said, "What do you order us to do?" He said, "To ease my grief, I want magnificent music played for a whole day." The music began to play, and the king sent a messenger to him to ask whether he had considered the matter. The messenger went and became absorbed in listening to the music. The king sent another messenger, and he too became absorbed in listening. The third sent a third one. The king sent a third one, and he too became absorbed in listening. Then the king himself went to his son-in-law, and the king too was bewitched by the music. As soon as the music stopped, the king began to question his son-in-law, who answered, "Your Majesty, free me for one night, and in a trice I will get your daughter." He went on the porch and moved the ring from one hand to the other. 300 strong men and 170 knights jumped out and asked him, "What do you order us to do?" "Bring back the princess with the entire palace, and let everything be in the old place, and done in one night." The princess arose in the morning, saw that she was in the old place, and became frightened because she did not know what would happen to her. Her husband came to the king. "Your Majesty," he asked, "what punishment shall we give the princess? My dear son-in-law, let us exhort her with words, and then do you... My dear son-in-law, let us exhort her with words, and then do you two live together and prosper." That is not what I would call an ending. It was an interesting story, though. It wasn't quite as terrible as some of the other ones. It had the potential to be terrible, but it wasn't quite as terrible as some of the other ones. Anyway, that I don't feel like it was wrapped up quite properly. I feel like there could have been more to that. I mean, the king just said, F it, you two live together and be happy now. But she knows about the ring, and she's ran away once, didn't care if he lived or died, and I don't see it not happening again. So, yeah, I think that story needs more to it. And again, I don't see any moral to the story. But regardless, let us move on because there are more fairy tales in this book. And the very next one is titled Foma and Erema, the Two Brothers. Now, I am one of, well, four brothers, but I'm a twin, so we are the two brothers who are twins. So maybe this has something. Well, no, I'm really reaching there. I just want to know what the story about two brothers is, honestly, and I don't know, but it looks like it's written as a poem. So this should be interesting. All right. Firma and Erema, the two brothers. And hey, don't forget to invite others to watch and share this on your page. That way, as many people as possible may join in and enjoy the stories. Well, enjoy them as much as you can with these. Here we are, the story. Oh, Foma and Erema, two brothers they were, alike in body, alike in mind, alike their noses, their eyes, their hair. Oh, two brothers, two such brothers you'll seldom find. Oh, it is written in poem, if in some sort of form of poetry. One day the two went to church to pray, one in a pew, the other at the altar. Erema took hymnal, Foma took psalter. Erema recited, and Foma prayed. And this was heard by the priests who stayed on hilltops, learned priests devout, who came to church and kicked them out, one out the window and one out the door, and they hastened away forevermore. They went to the woods where later they met, and there they decided gray rabbits to get. Grey rabbits, fast runners to hunt and to kill, but none they could find in hollow or hill. Instead, they went to the river banks steep to riverbanks steep where waters ran deep. Two ducks a swimming they saw down below. One duck was white, the other one like snow. Erema took stick and Foma grasped knife. Each was longing to take a duck's life. But Foma threw far, Erema too near, and the ducks swam away from there. The brothers then thought to catch some fish. To catch some fish was now their wish. Oh, Erema sat in a deep-bottomed boat, but the boat had no floor and would not float. And Foma did sit him down in a barge that had no bottom, but was very large. 3 years they sank, but could not drown. 3 devils in vain tried to pull them down. The brothers now wished their bodies to feed. To feed their bodies was now their need. They made up their minds to plough their fields, to take whatever the good earth yields. To market went Foma, Erema to fair. A foal and a colt the brothers bought there. Erema's colt refused to work, and Foma's foal his tasks did shirk. The brothers then slew their horses, they say, and ran from the fields, oh, quickly away. So they drowned for 3 years, without drowning, and in that time they didn't eat either. And so they decided to work a field, and their horses wouldn't work, so they killed the horses that they owned, which sucks because horses are awesome. But then they were hungry and they didn't eat the horses, but instead they fled. Really having a tough time grasping these stories, in case you couldn't tell. If you have any grasp on what's going on what's happening, then please feel free to comment and let me know. I would love it if you did. Or if you have any guesses, or if you would like to come up with a story of your own that would make them make more sense, please do so. In the meantime, we will move on to The Just Reward. I like that title. I think this is promising. Oh. Ah. Good stuff. So this one, like I said, is called The Just Reward. And here we are. The king of a certain country lost his ring while on a drive through his capital. He at once placed a notice in the newspapers promising that whoever might find and return the ring would receive a large reward in money. A simple private was lucky enough to find it. What shall I do, thought the soldier. If I report my find at regimental headquarters, the whole affair will be referred to my superiors, and in his turn, each in his turn, from the sergeant to the company commander, from the company commander to the battalion commander, from the battalion commander to the colonel, and from the colonel to the brigadier general. There will never be an end to it. I would rather go straight to the king. Okay, So you think you know where the king's ring is? Then go straight to the king, why not? He came to the palace. The officer on guard asked him, "What do you want here?" "I have found the king's ring," said the soldier. "Very well, brother. I will announce you, but only on condition that I get half the reward that the king gives you." The soldier thought to himself, "For once in my life I have had a piece of luck, and now I have to share it." However, he answered the officer on guard, "Very well, I agree. Only give me a note stating that half the reward is for you and half for me." The officer gave him the note and announced him to the king. The king praised the soldier for having found the ring. "Thank you, brave soldier," he said. "I shall give you 2,000 rubles as reward." "No, your royal majesty, that is not a soldier's reward. A soldier's reward is 200 lashes." "What a fool you are," said the king, and ordered that the sticks be brought in. The soldier began to undress, unbuttoned his tunic, and the note dropped on the floor. "What paper is that?" asked the king. "Your majesty, this is a note stating that only half the reward is for me, and the other half must go to the officer on guard." The king laughed, called the officer on guard, and ordered that he be given 100 lashes. The order was carried out, and when it was time to count the last 10 lashes, the soldier drew near to the king and said, "Your majesty, since he is so greedy, I will give the other half of the reward to him too." "How kind you are," said the king, and ordered that the officer on guard be given the second 100 lashes. After this, the reward, the officer could hardly crawl home. As for the soldier, the king gave him an honorable discharge from the service and presented him with 3,000 rubles. Finally, a story with some kind of happy ending. Now, it's not very happy for that officer on guard, but he was being greedy son of a bitch and kind of deserved what he got there, if you ask me. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think that officer on guard kind of deserved it. Anyway, finally, a story where there's some sort of moral, and in this case, it was the protagonist actually getting out of this alive and in good health and in a positive way, by outsmarting the antagonist. So yes, finally, a story with a positive ending. I'm surprised. Anyway, let's move on. That gives me hope for the next one. Oh, it's called Salt. It's called Salt. Salt is the name of the next fairy tale, so maybe I don't have much hope for it. Well, we'll see. Maybe it'll surprise me. Maybe it'll surprise you too. Anyway, here it comes. Salt. In a certain city there lived a merchant who had 3 sons. The first was Fyodor, the second Vasily, and the third Ivan the Fool. Oh, maybe this is the one I'm thinking of. Maybe, maybe not, but we will see. Ivan the Fool. This merchant lived richly. He sailed in his ships to foreign lands and traded in all kinds of goods. Once he loaded 2 ships with precious merchandise and sent them beyond the sea with his 2 oldest sons. Ivan, his youngest son, always went to inns and alehouses, and for that reason his father did not trust him with any business. But when Ivan learned that his brothers had been sent beyond the sea, he straightway went to his father and begged him to be allowed to show himself in foreign lands, see people, and earn money by his wits. For a long time the merchant refused, saying, "You'll spend everything on drink and come home without your head." However, when he saw that his son persisted in his prayers, he gave him a ship with the very cheapest cargo, beams, boards, and planks. Yes, beams, boards, and planks. Yes, I want to stay on the page, damn it. All right. A few more. There we go. Ivan made ready for the voyage, lifted anchor, and soon overtook his brothers. They sailed together on the blue sea for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, but on the 4th strong winds arose and blew Ivan's ship to a remote and unknown island. "Very well, boys," cried Ivan to his crew, "make for shore." And they reached the shore. Ivan stepped out on the island, told his crew to wait for him, and started walking along a path. He walked and walked until he reached a very high mountain, and he saw that in the mountain there was neither sand nor stone, but pure Russian salt. He returned to the shore and ordered his sailors to throw all the beams and planks into the water and to load the ship with salt. As soon as this was done, Ivan lifted anchor and sailed away. After some time, a long time or a short time, and after they had sailed some distance, a great distance or a short distance, the ship approached a large and wealthy city, sailed into its harbor, and cast anchor. Ivan, the merchant's son, went into the city to make obeisance to the king of the country. Yes, to the king of the country, and to obtain permission to trade freely, and he took a bundle of his merchandise, Russian salt, to show to the king. His arrival was immediately reported to the sovereign, who summoned him and said, "Speak, what is your business? What do you want?" "Just this, your majesty. Permit me to trade freely in your city." "And what goods do you sell?" "Russian salt, your majesty." The king had never heard of salt. In his kingdom, the people ate without salt. He wondered what this new and unknown merchandise might be. "Come," he said, "show it to me." Ivan, the merchant's son, opened his kerchief. The king glanced at the contents and thought to himself, "This is only white sand." And he said to Ivan with a smile, "Brother, this can be had without money." Ivan left the palace feeling very downcast. Then it occurred to him to go to the king's kitchens and see how the cooks prepared meals there and what kind of salt they used. He went into the kitchen, asked to be allowed to rest for a while, sat on a chair and watched. The cooks ran back and forth. One was busy boiling, another roasting, another pouring, and still another crushing lice. Yes, crushing lice on a ladle. Lice, interesting. Ivan, the merchant's son, saw, by the way, here's a small picture on the page for the story. So, Ivan, the merchant's son, saw that they were not the least bit concerned with salting the food. He waited till the moment came when everyone else was out of the kitchen. Then he seized the chance to pour the proper amounts of salt into all the stews and sauces. The time came to serve the dinner, and the first dish was brought in. The king ate of it and found it savory as never before. The second dish was served, and he liked it even better. Then the king summoned his cooks and said to them, "I have been king for many years, but never before have you cooked me such a savory dishes. How did you do it?" The cooks answered, "Your majesty, we cooked as of old and did not add anything new. But the merchant who came to ask permission to trade freely is sitting in the kitchen. Perhaps he has added something. Summon him to my presence." Ivan, the merchant's son, was brought before the king to be questioned. He fell on his knees and asked forgiveness. "Your majesty, I confess my guilt. I have seasoned all the dishes and sauces with Russian salt. Such is the custom in my country. And for how much do you sell this salt?" Ivan realized that his business was in a fair way and answered, "It is not very dear for 2 measures of salt, 1 measure of silver, and 1 of gold." The king agreed to this price and bought the whole cargo. Ivan filled his ship with silver and gold and sat down to wait for a favorable wind. Now the king of that land had a daughter, a beautiful princess. She wanted to see the Russian ships and asked her father's permission to go down to the port. The king gave her permission. She took her nurses, governesses, and maidservants with her and drove forth to see the Russian ship. Ivan, the merchant's son, showed her every part and told her its name, the sails, the rigging, the bow, and the stern, and then he led her into the cabin. Ooh. He ordered his crew to cut away the anchor, hoist the sails, and put out to sea, and since they had a good tailwind, they were soon a good distance from the city. The princess came up on deck, saw only the sea around her, and began to weep. Oh, that's not good. Kidnapping Ivan, really? Anyway, Ivan, the merchant's son, spoke to her, comforted her, and urged her to dry her tears, and since he was so handsome, she soon smiled and ceased grieving, because that's exactly how it works. You're kidnapped from home and, well, he's handsome, so I guess it's okay. All right, moving forward. Hey, yes, stay on the page. Why do you keep asking if I want to leave the page? Yes, no, I want to keep on the page, and I want to keep streaming for everyone. Yes, so anyway, moving back into the story. For some time, a long time or a short time, Ivan sailed on the sea with the princess. Then his elder brothers overtook him, learned of his audacity and good fortune, and greatly envied him. They came on board his ship, seized him by his arms, and threw him into the sea. Then they cast lots between them and divided the booty. The eldest brother took the princess, and the second brother took the ship full of silver and gold. Now it happened that when they flung Ivan from the ship, he saw one of the boards that he himself had thrown into the sea. He clutched this board and for a long time drifted on it above the depths of the sea. Finally, he was carried to an unknown island. He went ashore and walked along the beach. He met a giant with an enormous mustache, on which hung his mittens, which he was drying thus after the rains. "What do you want here?" asked the giant. Ivan told him everything that had happened. "If you so desire, I will carry you home."
Tomorrow your eldest brother is to marry the princess. Sit on my back. How did the giant know that? Regardless, let's go on. He took Ivan up in his hands, seated him on his back, and ran across the sea. That's impressive. Ivan's cap dropped off. Ah, me, he said, I've lost my cap. Never mind, brother, said the giant. Your cap is now far away, 500 versts behind us. He brought Ivan to his native land, put him on the ground, and said, Now promise that you will not boast to anyone about having ridden on my back. If you do boast, I shall crush you. I would believe him. He's a giant who just ran across an ocean. Anyway, Ivan, the merchant's son, promised not to boast, thanked the giant, and set out on the homeward journey. When he arrived, everyone was already at the wedding table preparing to go to church. As soon as the beautiful princess saw him, she jumped from her seat and threw herself on his neck. This is my bridegroom, she said, and not the one who sits here by my side. What is this? Asked the father. Ivan told him everything, how he had traded in salt, how he had carried off the princess, and how his elder brothers had pushed him into the sea. The father was very angry at his eldest sons, drove them out of the house, and married Ivan to the princess. Now a gay feast began. The guests got drunk and began to boast, some about the strength, some about their wealth, and some about the beauty of their young wives. And Ivan sat, and then drunkenly boasted. What are your boasts worth? I have something real to boast about. I rode horseback on a giant across the entire sea. Oh, Ivan, Ivan! The moment he said these words, the giant appeared at the gate. Ah, Ivan, son of the merchant, he said, I told you not to boast about me. Now what have you done? Forgive me, Ivan implored him. It was not I who boasted, but my drunkenness. Come, show me, what do you mean by drunkenness? Interesting twist. Ivan gave orders that a 100-gallon barrel of wine and a 100-gallon barrel of beer he brought. That's a lot of wine and beer. That's 200. Wow. The giant drank the wine and the beer, got drunk, and began to break up and ruin everything in his path. He knocked down trees and bushes and tore big houses asunder. Then he fell down and slept 3 days and nights without awakening. When he awoke, he was shown all the damage he had done. The giant was terribly surprised and said, Well, Ivan, son of the merchant, now I know what drunkenness is. Henceforth, you may boast about me all you like. Another interesting story. Another example of the bad guys getting, I guess, what they deserved, and the good guy, well, I don't know how good of a guy he is, but he's really not a very good guy. He kidnapped a princess. I mean, she did calm down when she realized he was handsome, but still. All right, let us move on to another story. The next one is called The Golden Slipper. And I'm all out of vodka. Well, I have more in the other room, but I'm not going to leave you guys. I'm going to continue reading. Yes, yay, alcohol. You know what? Now that you say it, I do have more alcohol, and it's just right here. I have some mango brandy, and I'm going to pour myself a glass of that. So it doesn't have to be vodka, and I don't even have to leave my seat. It is delicious, cheap and delicious. Yes, it is. If you like mangoes, that is. And, because quite frankly, it tastes like mangoes. Like a mango nectar, but not as thick. And it has the smallest bite. Not a bad kind of bite, though. It's just that it's got alcohol in it, obviously. Anyway, the Golden Slipper. An old man and his old wife had 2 daughters. Once the old man went to town and bought a fish for the eldest sister and a fish for the younger sister. The elder sister ate her fish, but the younger one went to the well and said, Little mother fish, what shall I do with you? Do not eat me, said the fish, but put me in the water. I will be useful to you. The maiden dropped the fish into the well and went home. By the way, Cameron, it's been forever since we've talked. I hope you're doing well. Same with you, Kyle. And who was it? Oh, yes, I see Brittany's here, Tyler's here, Noah's here, Laura's here. Hello, Miss Thomas. Hello, Lexi. Hello, Mother. Hello, everyone. I hope you all are well, and it's very good to have all of you along for this journey. So, moving on. Now, the old woman had a great dislike for her younger daughter. She dressed the elder sister in her best clothes, made ready to take her to mass, and gave the younger one 2 measures of rye, ordering her to husk it before their return from church. The young girl went to fetch water. She sat on the edge of the well and wept. The fish swam to the surface and asked her, "Why do you weep, lovely maiden?" "How can I help but weep?" answered the maiden. "My mother has dressed my sister in her best clothes and gone with her to mass, but she left me home and ordered me to husk 2 measures of rye before her return from church." Excuse me. The fish said, "Weep not. Dress and go to church. The rye will be husked." The maiden dressed and went to mass. Her mother did not recognize her. Toward the end of the mass, the girl went home. Very soon, her mother too came home also and said, "Well, you ninny, did you husk the rye?" "I did," the daughter answered. "What a beauty we saw at mass," her mother went on. "The priest neither chanted nor read, but looked at her the whole time. And just look at you, you ninny, see how you're dressed." "I wasn't there, but I know all about it," answered the maiden. "How could you know?" asked the mother. Oh, mother. Yes, Paul Mason mango brandy. That is the stuff, Cameron. The next day, the mother dressed her elder daughter in her best clothes, went with her to mass, and left 3 measures of barley for the younger one, saying, "While I pray to God, you husk the barley." So she went to mass, and her younger daughter went to fetch water at the well. She sat down at the edge of the well and wept. Fish swam to the surface and asked, "Why do you weep, lovely maiden?" "How can I help weeping?" The maiden answered, "My mother has dressed my sister in her best clothes and taken her to mass, but she left me at home and ordered me to husk 3 measures of barley before she returns home from church." The fish said, "Weep not. Dress and go to church after her. The barley will be husked." The maiden dressed, went to church, and began to pray to God. The priest neither chanted nor read, but looked at her all the time. That day the king's son was attending mass. Our beautiful maiden pleased him tremendously, and he wanted to know whose daughter she was. She took some pitch and threw it under her golden slipper. The slipper remained when the girl went home. I will marry her whose slipper this is," said the young priest. Soon the old woman too came home. What a beauty was there," she said. "The priest neither chanted nor read, but all the time looked at her. And just look at you. What a tatterdemalion you are." "A tatterdemalion? That is quite an interesting word." But anyway, gosh, didn't recognize her own daughter. And here we go with the whole slipper thing. That's familiar from other fairy tales. Anyway, let us continue. Hello, Jessica. Glad you have joined us. In case you're wondering, a mother just called her daughter a tatterdemalion. Tatterdemalion. In the meantime, the prince was traveling from one district to another, seeking the maiden who had lost her slipper, but he could not find anyone whom it fitted. He came to the old woman and said, "Call your young daughter hither. I want to see whether the slipper fits her." "My daughter will dirty the slipper," answered the old woman. The maiden came, and the king's son tried the slipper on her. It fitted. He married her, and they lived happily and prospered. I drank beer at the wedding. It ran down my lips, but never went into my mouth. I was given a flowing robe to wear, but a raven flew over and caught me. Flowing robe, flowing robe. I thought he was crying. Throw the robe. So I threw it away. I asked for a cap, but received a slap. I was given red slippers, but the raven flew over me and called, "Red slippers, red slippers." I thought he was crying, "Robbed slippers." So I threw them away. Okay, that made no sense at all. None at all. None whatsoever. I am very confused by that ending. It should have just ended with lived happily and prospered. But oh well. In the meantime, I'm going to look up a word here. I want to know what tatterdemalion is. And I think you probably do too. So here we go. Tatterdemalion. It is in the dictionary here. So yes, a person dressed in ragged clothing. First used 1608. Origin unknown. Another word for it, ragamuffin. I know ragamuffin. I'd never heard tatterdemalion though. But yes, a person dressed in ragged clothing. Well, mother dearest, it's your fault your child was dressed in ragged clothing, so you have no room to talk. Anyway, moving on to the next story. Amelia the Simpleton. So yes, that was kind of like a take on Cinderella. Anyway, Amelia the Simpleton. This is our next story for the evening. Once there were 3 brothers, of whom 2 were wise and the third a simpleton. The wise brothers went to buy merchandise in the towns and told the simpleton, "Now mind, simpleton, obey our wives and respect them as you would your own mother. We shall buy you red boots, a red caftan, and a red shirt in return." The simpleton said, "Very well, I will respect them." Having thus instructed the simpleton, the brothers went to the town, and the simpleton lay down on the stove and stayed there. On the stove? "Your brothers told you to respect us and promised to bring you gifts in return, but you are lying on the stove and doing no work at all. At least go and fetch water." The simpleton took the pails and went to fetch water. He drew water, and a pike got into one of the pails. The simpleton said, "Thanks be to God. Now I shall cook this pike. I shall eat my fill, and I will not give any to my sisters-in-law, for I am angry at them." The pike said to him with the voice of a man, "Simpleton, do not eat me. Put me back into the water, and you will be happy." The simpleton asked, itchy nose. "What happiness will you give me?" "The happiness I'll give. Whatever you say will come to pass. For instance, say now, by the pike's command, by my own request, go. Pails, go home by yourselves, and stand in your accustomed place." As soon as the simpleton said this, the pails straightway went home and stood in their place. The sisters-in-law beheld this and marveled. "He is not a simpleton at all," they said. "He is so clever that his pails have come home by themselves and stand in their place." Then the simpleton came home and lay down on the stove. Again his sisters-in-law said to him, "Why do you lie on the stove, simpleton? We have no wood. Go and fetch wood." The simpleton took 2 axes, sat in the sled, but did not harness the horses to it. "By the pike's command, by my own request," he said, "roll, sled, into the woods." The sled rolled, and hello, Shay, good to see you as well. The sled rolled speedily forward as though someone were driving it with a horse. The simpleton had to drive through the town, and without a horse he ran over so many people that it was a disaster. Everyone cried, "Stop him, catch him," but they could not catch him. The simpleton entered the woods, got off his sled, sat down on a tree trunk, and said, "Let one axe cut from the root, let the other axe chop wood." And the wood was chopped and loaded on the sled. The simpleton said, "Now, axe, go and cut a stick for me, so that I will have something to lift the load with." The axe cut a stick for him. The stick came and lay on the sled. The simpleton sat in the sled and drove homeward. He passed through the town, but there the people had assembled to wait for him. They caught him and began to belabor him. The simpleton said, "By the pike's command, by my own request, go, stick, and take care of this mob." The stick jumped up and set about hitting and thrashing left and to the right, till it had beaten up a great multitude of people, who fell to the ground like sheaves of grain. Thus the simpleton got rid of them and came home, stacked up the wood, and sat on the stove. Now the inhabitants of the town went to the king with a petition against him. He should be seized, they said. He must be lured by the stratagem, and best of all would be to promise him a red shirt, a red caftan, and red boots. The king's messengers came to the simpleton. "Go to the king," they said. "He will give you red boots, a red caftan, and a red shirt." The simpleton said, "By the pike's command, by my own request, stove, go to the king." He sat on the stove, and the stove went. The simpleton arrived at the king's. The king wanted to put him to death, but his daughter conceived a great liking for the simpleton, and began to beg her father to let her marry him. Her father grew angry, wedded them, and had them both put in a barrel. Then he had the barrel covered with pitch and thrown into the sea. For a long time the barrel sailed on the water. Finally the simpleton's wife asked him, "Make that we be thrown out on the shore." The simpleton said, "By the pike's command, by my own request, let this barrel be thrown on the shore and broken to pieces." They climbed out of the barrel, and now the simpleton's wife asked him to build some kind of hut. The simpleton said, "By the pike's command, by my own request, let the marble palace be built, and let this palace be right opposite the king's palace." All this was accomplished at once. Next morning the king saw the new palace and sent someone to find out who was living in it. As soon as he heard that his daughter was living there, he demanded that she and her husband appear before him. They came, the king forgave them, and they began to live happily together and to prosper. What? Just what? There's no point to that story. I mean, you have someone who's obviously not a very thoughtful person, who's getting wishes that are granted, and oh my gosh, that's and the king in the end is just like, oh, cool. All right, well, you're good. Sure, why not? Okay, fine. Moving on, I will read one more fairy tale, and then we will read an original story of my own. This last fairy tale we read for the evening is called The Three Kingdoms. Ooh, it's a longer one, and it's got several pictures for you. Good one to stop on. Here we go. Once upon a time, there lived an old man with his old wife. I'm sensing a theme here. Plenty of old man with his old wife stories. But anyway, they had 3 sons. Really, 3 sons again. A lot of people have an old man and an old woman as his wife with 3 sons. But we go on. They had 3 sons. Egarushko the nimble, Mishka the bandy-legged, and Ivashko lie on the stove. Another one who just lies on the stove. What is it with people lying on the stove? Anyway, their father and mother wanted to marry them off. They sent their eldest son to find a bride for himself. He walked and walked for a long time. Wherever he looked at the girls, he could not choose a bride for himself because none was to his liking. Then he met a 3-headed dragon on the road and was frightened. The dragon said to him, "Where are you going, my good fellow?" Egarushko answered, "I have set out to get married, but I cannot find a bride." The dragon said, "Come with me, I will lead you. We shall see whether you can get a bride." They walked and walked until they came to a big stone. The dragon said, "Turn up the stone. There you will get what you wish." Egarushko tried to turn it up, but could not move it. The dragon said to him, "There is no bride for you. Egarushko returned home and told his father and mother what had happened. Again the father and mother pondered over what they should do, and they sent their middle son, Mishka the bandy-legged, to find a bride. Mishka the bandy-legged, Egarushko the nimble. Okay, yes, yeah. The same thing happened to him. The old man and his wife thought and wondered what to do, for if they sent Ivashko lie on the stove, he surely would not accomplish anything. However, to me, it seems like the people who lie on stoves seem to do the best. Maybe I should start doing that. Regardless, let us continue on. However, Ivashko lie on the stove began to beg for a chance to have a look at the dragon. His father and mother at first would not let him go, but later they consented. Ivashko, too, walked and met the 3-headed dragon. Sounds like a hydra to me, but maybe not. The dragon asked him, "Whither are you going, my good fellow?" Ivashko answered, "My brothers wanted to get married, but could not find a bride. Now it is my turn. Come with me, then. I will show you whether you can get a bride." And so the dragon went along with Ivashko, and they came to the same stone, and the dragon told him to turn up the stone from its place. Ivashko took hold of it, and the stone rolled off. There was a hole in the ground, and near it some thongs were fixed. The dragon said, "Ivashko, sit on the thongs. I will lower you, then you will come to 3 kingdoms, and in each of them you will see a maiden." And there is a photograph here, an illustration, if you will, and here it is for you. Moving on. Ivashko was lowered and started on his way. He walked until he came to the Copper Kingdom. He entered it and saw a beautiful maiden. She said, "Welcome, rare guest. Come in and sit down where you see a smooth place, and tell me whence you come and whither you are going." "Ah, fair maiden," said Ivashko, "you have not given me food nor drink, yet you ask me questions." The maiden placed all sorts of food and drink on the table. Ivashko ate and drank and told her what he was seeking a bride for himself. "And if I ever favor with you," he said, "please be my wife." "No, my good man," said the maiden, "travel on still farther." "Oh, and if I find favor with you," yes, "travel on farther. Then you will come to see the Silver Kingdom. There lives a maiden even more beautiful than I." And she gave him a silver ring. The gallant youth thanked the maiden for her hospitality, said farewell to her, and went on. "Hello, Joy, glad to see you here. Hello, Brian, good to see you as well. It's been a while. I hope you are well. Here is a cheers to all of you." All right. Walked and came to the Silver Kingdom. He entered it and saw a maiden even more beautiful than the first. He asked a blessing and made obeisance. I don't know how to say that word. Obeisance. "I salute you, fair maiden," she answered. "Welcome, strange youth. Sit down and boast about who you are, and whence and for what business you have come here." "Ah, fair maiden," said Ivashko, "you have not given me food nor drink, yet you are asking me questions." The maiden set the table and brought all kinds of food and drink. Ivashko ate and drank as much as he wanted, then told her that he had set out to find a bride, and asked her to be his wife. She said to him, "Go on still farther. Beyond there is a golden kingdom, and in it lives a maiden even more beautiful than I." And she gave him a golden ring. Ivashko said farewell to her and went on. He walked and walked, and came to a golden kingdom. He entered it and saw a maiden more beautiful than the others. So he asked a blessing and saluted the maiden, as is becoming. The maiden began to ask him from whence he came and whither he was going. "Ah, fair maiden," he said, "you have not given me food nor drink, yet you ask me questions." So she put all kinds of food and drink on the table, the best imaginable. Ivashko lay on the stove, treated himself amply to everything, and began to tell his story. "I am on the way to find a bride. If you wish to be my wife, come with me." The maiden consented and gave him a golden ball. Deferential respect. Thank you, Cameron. Do you know how to pronounce it? That would be very, very useful right now. Golden ball. They set out together. They walked and came to the Silver Kingdom. There they took the maiden with them, and again they walked and came to the Copper Kingdom. There too they took the maiden. Then all of them went to the hole from which they had to climb out, and they found the thongs hanging there. And the elder brothers were already standing by the hole, about to climb into it to find Ivashko. Now Ivashko seated the maiden from the Copper Kingdom on the thongs and shook them. The brothers pulled and lifted out the maiden and lowered the thongs again. Then Ivashko seated the maiden from the Silver Kingdom, and the brothers pulled her out and sent down the thongs. Finally, he seated the maiden from the Golden Kingdom, and the brothers pulled her out too and dropped back the thongs. Ivashko now seated himself on them. His brothers pulled him too, pulled and pulled, but when they saw that it was Ivashko, they said, "If we pull him out, he might refuse to give us a maiden." And they cut the thongs, and Ivashko fell down. Well, there was nothing he could do. He wept and wept, and then went on. He walked, and this is what he saw. On a tree trunk sat an old man as big as an inch, with a beard a cubit long. Ah, this is the thumb-sized man, obeisance. Thank you, obeisance. Very good. This sounds like the thumb-sized man I've told you about before. If I'm not incorrect, a cubit long is, well, no, I don't know how long a cubit is. The thumb-sized man in another story has a mustache that's about 2.5 miles long in either direction. But anyway, let's go on. On a tree trunk sat an old man as big as an inch, with a beard a cubit long. Ivashko told him everything that had happened to him and how. The old man instructed him to go farther. "You will come to a little house," he said, "and in the house there lies a man so tall that he stretches from corner to corner, and you must ask him how to get to Russia." So Ivashko walked and came to the little house. He entered it and said, "Mighty giant, do not kill me. Tell me how to get to Russia." "Fie, fie," said the giant. No one asked these Russian bones to come here. They have come by themselves. Well, go beyond 30 legs. There a little house stands on a chicken leg, and in the house lives Baba Yaga, or Baba Yaga, however you wish to say it. But she is bad for business, if you know what I mean. Anyway, she has an eagle, and she will take you out. Yes, if you've never heard of Baba Yaga, however you wish to say it, she is bad news bears, and you don't want to mess with her. But if you're going to get favor with her, well, good for you. Very powerful and all that good stuff. But anyway, obeisance, yes. She has an eagle, and he will take you out. The good youth walked and came to the little house. He entered it, and Baba Yaga cried, "Fie, fie, fie, Russian bones! Why have you come here?" Then Ivashko said, "Little grandmother, I came by order of the mighty giant to ask for your powerful eagle, that he might take me up to Russia." "Go to the garden," said Baba Yaga. "At the gate there stands a sentry. Take the keys from him and go beyond 7 doors. As you open the last door, the eagle will flutter his wings, and if you are not frightened by him, sit on him and fly. Only take some meat with you, and each time he looks back, give him a piece." Ivashko did as Baba Yaga told him. He sat on the eagle, and off they flew. They flew and flew. The eagle looked back, and Ivashko gave him a piece of meat. They flew, and he gave meat to the eagle often, and now he had given the eagle all the meat he had, and there was still a long distance to fly. The eagle looked back, and there was no meat, so the eagle plucked a piece of flesh from Ivashko's shoulder, ate it, and dragged him out through the same hole to Russia. When Ivashko got down off the eagle spat out the piece of flesh and told him to put it back into his shoulder. Ivashko did so, and his shoulder healed. He came home, took the maiden of the Golden Kingdom from his brothers, and they began to live happily together, and are still living. I was at their wedding and drank beer. The beer ran along my mustache, but did not go into my mouth. Well then, that happened, and here is a picture. Yes, that just happened. Another story with quite an odd ending. Well, I could go on with more of these, but I will stop on them for now and move on to an original story for you. Let me find a good one. Stories. Yes, here we go. I think I will read for you Treehouse. Treehouse, yes, that's a good one. So, yes, we are done for now with the Russian fairy tales, and now it is one tale of my own that I will tell you. This is an interesting one, so we'll see if you like it. This one, like I said, is called Treehouse. I was 7 when my mother died. Except around her, I had always felt like an outcast. My brother and sister were very quiet around me, and my father generally didn't have time for me, but my mother loved me. There weren't very many of us at the funeral. It was just my father, my brother, my sister, and me. Grandma was there too, but she didn't stay long. She'd always seen herself as a strong type, and she didn't want us to see her cry. Between you and me, I've seen her cry. Dad told me to meet him in the living room when we got home. He said I should probably change first, but I just decided to see what he wanted. He told me that he was not my father. Davy, I feel like you should know this. 7 years ago, your mother had an affair. I loved her, and I still do. It was because I loved her so much that I did not file for divorce, and, well, that and we're Catholic. For the same reason, she did not get an abortion. Needless to say, never loved you like I did your brother or sister. You've been a constant reminder to me of that your mother and her sin, and now that there are no ties between you and me, I can let you go. When you get the chance, I would appreciate it if you got your stuff together and moved out. He gave me $50 as a start and said that I would now have to support myself. It was then that I decided to move into the treehouse. My brother and sister had started an innkeeping business there, and it was rather affordable. It was $1 every night, and they would reinflate the air mattress, fluff the pillows, and bring me 3 meals a day. The first week was a little rough. I missed sharing the old room with my brother and sister, but it was kind of like a vacation, apart from the fact that I was in what used to be my backyard. I couldn't help but wonder why Jim would decide to send me into the world on my own. I was rather mature for my age, sure, but I was still only 7. 4 weeks into my stay at the treehouse, and summer was coming to an end. I still missed Mum, but at least I had my brother and sister to be with when I wasn't at the inn. My favorite part of the day was dinner. I still got to see Jim. We were on a first-name basis now, and I got to feel the air conditioning. The best dinner was on my birthday. Jim gave me $70 and a really cool bank to put the money in. Joe and Steph split a week's in earnings to get me a couple of decks of souvenir playing cards. My favorite so far was the Master Trickster deck for practicing sleight of hand. When school started, my brother and sister increased their services as innkeepers by helping me pack my bag and get ready for the bus. All of my friends were impressed when I told them I was living on my own. Bernie Davis, he tried to get his parents to let him move out, but they said he wasn't old enough. He was 9. When 4 months had nearly passed, I was almost out of money. I decided to ask Jim for a loan on the promise that I would pay him back. I even said, please. He said no. He said that he did not have enough money because he spent so much on my birthday. When I spent the last of my money on the inn fee, Jim, he came to visit me at the treehouse. Davy, when I told you that I do not love you like I love your brother and sister, I did not mean that I did not love you. I meant that I did not want to love you in the same way. You always remind me of what your mother did to hurt me, but there's so much of her in you that I cannot help but love you, whether I want to or not. I would like you to see something. I followed Jim into the old house. We went down the main hall toward the front of the house, and when we reached Jim's study, he said, "Remember how I said you're not allowed in here?" When he opened the door, I saw that there was a bed inside. The room was painted my favorite color, blue. It was even done in a watery shade to look like it was under the sea. There was a television in the corner and his old Atari. I had never been allowed to play it before. "You can move back in with us if you promise me one thing," he said. "Promise me you'll always be just like your mother, just the way you are." I was 8 years old when my father told me he loved me for the first time. It was not with his words. And that is the end of the story. So, I hope you liked Treehouse. I like that one. I think it's rather charming, but I could be wrong. Anyway, I hope all of you have a wonderful evening. I hope you enjoyed the stories this evening, and I suppose I will see you again tomorrow night with Story Time, where we will be continuing where we left off in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I believe it's with chapter 6. I have the book here. Yes. No. Chapter 5, not chapter 6. We'll be reading chapter 5 and chapter 6. So, Diagon Alley. That's where we will be picking up tomorrow. Anyway, I hope you had a good time tonight, just as I did. And if you liked my story, please comment below and let me know what you thought. If you thought there was anything good or bad about it, if anything was strange, if there's anything you think would be changed, whatever. Either way, let me know what you think. And if you enjoyed story time, go ahead and share the link with your friends as well. And in the meantime, I will be posting it again on my page, the YouTube link. Until next time, my friends, I bid you adieu.